Good afternoon. Welcome to Marshfield's Old School Times, the Veterans Day, November 11th edition. Thank you for joining us today. We're certainly here and we want to recognize all of the veterans today and all your service and all you've done to provide freedom to our country and our communities. We really appreciate every veteran and all the support that they were given over the years, spouses, family, friends. We're glad to have a veteran with us today, someone that's been around Marshfield all of his life. And I can tell you, he is a true scholar, a true historian on Marshfield and Northern Webster County history. Tom Farr. Tom, welcome.
Glad to be here.
We're sure glad to have you. Really look forward to this day. I've talked about getting Tom on here since we began the show. And Tom's going to have a lot of information that probably we won't get to, and I'm going to have him back, and I'm hoping he'll let me spend a little time with him off the air, just learning and studying a little bit more about the history of Marshfield and some of the stories that he'll be able to tell. Well, I always want to thank Dennis Beck for his song that we used at the beginning, and I normally say Dennis graduated in 1976, and I'm always wrong when I think about that after. It's 75. I've been mixed up a couple of times. And of course, Logan Fraker's our producer, and he's back over here behind the camera. Logan, thanks again for helping us out. We're going to just get started here with Tom because we want to utilize every bit of time. Tom, you certainly grew up here in Marshfield, born here, and have raised your family here. So I'm going to kind of turn the mic over to you. And
I guess you can call me a native. I'm living now 4 blocks from the house I was born in.
is that right? Oh, that's awesome.
I've never lived more than the last house on Washington. It's the farthest I've lived from the courthouse in my life.
Well, I'd say you're definitely a Marshfieldian, that's for sure. Um, so just kind of start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, when you were born, who your folks were, your siblings, and kind of what it was like growing up in Marshfield in the 30s, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, my dad was Tom Farr, and my
Mm-hmm.
wife was Bernice Montgomery, and I have a brother Wayne who passed away a few years ago. I have a sister Laura Mae who lives in Branson, and then I married Ivina Farr in 1953, and Ivina Farr, yeah, she's Ivina Rader, and we have one daughter Leslie, lives at Fairplay, Missouri, and she has 2 kids and 2 grandkids, so
Yeah,
I have good family
yeah,
around,
yeah.
and then all the Raiders and the Montgomerys, and my grandma Montgomery had 2 sisters and 13 brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and she was a Rice. So on my mail route, at one time I had 37 aunts, uncles, or cousins of me or my wife on my mail route.
Wow, that might be a record, huh?
I think probably.
That's a bunch. Well, now, are we connected way back there somewhere on either the roast or on my grandmother's side? I know
Okay.
the Farrs and the Montgomerys were back out
You're
there from the Ebenezer
okay.
Teagues community.
My dad's brother married your Aunt Beulah.
Yeah, Bill, Uncle
Bill.
Bill. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
share an aunt and
yeah.
uncle.
Sharon aunt and uncle. Okay, well, so not by blood, but
Not by blood, no.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Well, a lot of that, those community folks back there were connected.
Yeah. Yes.
Kind of like the Amish today. They didn't get out of town too far, and they had to find a
Yeah.
spouse, a mate within the communities.
Yeah.
So you were born in 1930,
29.
29. Okay, you
Yeah.
were just a little bit older than my dad, but in the
Well,
same class.
I started in the first grade.
Hmm.
I got sick, had chicken pox, whooping cough, and diphtheria.
Oh my,
And so I didn't finish first grade, and I did it again. And
I see.
I should have graduated in 47. I graduated in 48.
48. Okay.
Yeah. I always thought it was a good choice.
Yeah, you I tell you what, that you guys were a tight class. I
We,
know he just thought so much of the
yeah.
gatherings and the getting together for lunch. Even in later years, you always had
Well,
good turnouts and
we
people
had,
were
in
close.
our class of 48, we had about 48
Hmm.
kids
Hmm.
that actually graduated. That
Happen to have a picture here. I know y'all can't see it, but this is this is the original copy of like what is on the gym hall walls. Many of you have seen the old pictures from school. This is kind of the picture I guess they took it off of, right?
Yeah,
Out of
yeah.
the
And uh, think there's 49 or 50 kids listed in the picture, but 2 of them didn't graduate.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
This one and this one. So
In-
anyway, that's
Yeah. Out of 48, any idea about how many are still living?
5.
There's 5 of you. Wow.
Jackie Dale Anderson, his
Uh-huh.
wife Shirley Shields
Yes.
Anderson, Bob Bateman at Marionville, Anna Marie Herman, who lives in Derby, Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
and myself.
Wow.
And Anna Maria, last time I talked to her, she thought we should have another class reunion. And I said, well, I'll make arrangements with Webco and see what we can do.
Well, it doesn't sound to me like any of you are in the nursing home, though.
Jack and Shirley are
Jack and Shirley
in
are
assisted
living. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, you had a remarkable life and a great, I know, a great school time in school, and you built some long-term friendships with these
Our
people.
class always had a 5-year reunion until we got to 50. And somebody said, your dad actually said, as old as we're getting, if we wait 5 years again, we might forget each other. So we started having a reunion every 3 months, and we did it until we couldn't.
Went to the Heritage Cafeteria a lot, I remember.
Yeah. TJ's son was assistant manager, and he made arrangements for us.
That was TJ Dugan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's a great thing to be able to cherish those memories. So, growing up in Marshfield, born in 1929, the Depression was going on. Your dad worked, I think you told me, at the Dodge dealership.
Yeah, he worked for Tar's Garage.
Mm-hmm. And tell us where that was at.
That was on Jackson Street. And
that's where Doc Bartow's office is now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he worked there from before I was born until 35, and then he started his own garage over where Alice Chalmer is on Madison Street.
Okay.
And he then
just an independent garage, like working on cars.
Yes, and then he got a dealership through Martin Motor Company, Chrysler Plymouth in Springfield, and he was a sub dealer with Martin Motor until World War II was over, and they did away with the sub dealer. He got a full dealership then.
And that was Chrysler Plymouth.
Chrysler Plymouth, and he did that till 75 when he sold out.
And I certainly remember the building and remember your dad. And I know my granddad Roast bought cars from him all the time. They were good friends.
Yeah, he had pretty steady customers. So,
and that dealership was location?
It's on North Clay Street, right across from where the Marshfield mail office is.
Kind of where that parking lot is for the city.
And our house, from behind Roper Store was the car lot, then the garage, and then our house. And then that alley that runs between that and where the
tea house is there now.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember all of that.
Yeah.
What was it like? Who were some of your friends? What did you do, in the summers in the 30s and the Depression going on, and how did all that work? And did the Depression affect his business? I'm sure it did.
Sure, yeah.
He actually started that business kind of right in the middle of it, didn't he?
I have his record books of what he did. When he worked for John Tarr, he was paid on commission. And I have all of his books on his commission books.
Wow.
And I noticed one is a complete overhaul on some car, and it was $7.70 something. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Or Sharpner plowshares, 25 cents.
Yeah. What would a day's wages been back then?
$1.
A dollar a
He
day.
had he considered he had a fairly good job. Of course, he'd make $1.50, $2, $3 a day occasionally. Most, $2 would be his.
Now in the 20s, automobiles were just really beginning to get plentiful in the rural communities. I know, people had doodle bugs for tractors, and they might have had an old Model T or something, and put a flatbed on it. I mean, there was just kind of really. So when did automobiles? Say a family would get a car to actually. Was that during the 30s, maybe, like during the time your dad started?
When I was putting this together, I found a note in there that I was to give it to Sonny Lynn which I never got to him before he passed away. But I had the sale of bill for his mother's new 1946 Chrysler. I think it was $1,700 or $1,800.
and 46.
Yeah, I think it was 1950 that we got a Chrysler New Yorker in, and Dad was almost ashamed to tell anybody what the price was because it was $3,020.
Hey, that was a lot of money in 1950.
Yes, it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I know my dad bought a new Galaxy 500 Ford in '63, and it was like $3,500. So that would have been a lot of money in 10 years prior to that, or whatever.
My first car was my first new car was a 1950 Plymouth, and the dealer price on it was $1,617.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I bought a new 53, and it was $2,300.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but of course the war was over, and things were, rapidly growing, and prices were increasing,
yes.
and things were moving. There was the economy was just
Yeah.
expanding rapidly after the war.
Yeah.
Big difference between that and prior to the war. So,
Oh, totally different.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what did you do? Did you live in the house there by the dealership then, growing up?
Yes.
Or right
Yeah.
there in that
Yeah.
house? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so did you go to? What did you go to? I know people would walk to the park. Did you go
Well,
fishing? What did you do with the kids?
Before we lived there,
Yeah.
and before I started school, my folks built a house, the last house on the south side of Washington Street, right directly across from Price Chopper.
Oh, okay.
And I walked to school and walked home for lunch, walked back to school, and then come home.
Okay. Wow. That's a pretty good walk.
Yeah.
I mean, for lunch at least.
And they, of course, we had no lunchroom or anything like that.
Yeah.
But once in a while, my mother would give me 15 cents, and I could go across on the square to Muzzy's Cafe, and I could get a hamburger, big bottle of orange soda, and a little apricot pie for 15 cents.
15 cents. Wow.
Yeah.
I bet you'd love to have one of those paper cut pies today, wouldn't
Yeah, I would.
you? Yeah.
Yeah. So, there was a group of kids in that area that we walked together a lot.
Yeah.
Sonny Lynn and Raymond Cass, Dorothy Anderson, the Tyndall girls,
Mm-hmm.
and Charlie Terrell,
Mm-hmm.
and all lived in that same area.
So,
John Miller.
yeah. Did you go to the movie show?
Yeah.
The
yeah.
Ritz?
Cost a dime.
Cost a dime.
Until you got to be 12, and then it was a quarter. And I was so proud I got my scout uniform, and I went up and laid my dime down, and he said, "How old you got to be a Boy Scout?" And I said, 12. There went my popcorn money.
So everything was on the square back then. There was,
everything.
I mean, Carl Young's didn't move in till about 48 or so, I think,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, no,
and
everything
so
was
on the square there wasn't a spur because the old highway was the old
Yeah.
highway, 00 and
Yeah.
Hubble Drive.
Yeah.
So you were at the tail end of it pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, the Y, I guess the Y intersection was there,
Yeah.
and that was the bus station or whatever. And
No, that was out on the corner. There was another station between the corner that Abbott's run
yeah,
and us. Mr. Wallet ran, and later on a Heifel run it.
okay, was that the one that was behind the cabins?
Well, see, where Abbott's were, they had a row
Cabins.
of cabins,
Yeah.
and then back to them, there was another row of cabins.
That's the ones I remember. We got into that discussion with Pat the other day,
and it's all been those old cabins,
Yeah.
and they built that new
strip center.
Yeah.
But that's on the east cabins because the west ones were tore down when they built the station. Then, so that's what she was a little confused about. There being two rows of cabins. One set went with Abbott's, and one set
Give me your pencil.
and one set went with that Mrs.
This is Jackson Street.
Right,
Or, yeah, Jackson. This is Washington Street.
right,
Abbott's is right there.
right.
Mr. Wallet's right there, and our house is right here.
I got you. That little station was there when I was a kid. The building,
Yeah.
small deal, and then the house, the modern home was here. Mrs. Jackson's home was here.
Yeah.
The lady, I forget what was her name, that lived in that house that ran those cabins, because that row of cabins that
Well,
we tore down for that strip center.
there was a row of cabins
Yeah.
there, and right back to back of them, there was another row of cabins. There was
Right.
the two rows.
I'm talking about the second row right here, because this
Okay.
row went with Abbott's.
Yeah, that
This one, and then the little station went with this one, and then the
yeah,
new brick house next to the Jacksons.
J.J. Jackson.
Well, next to that though, there was a house that they tore down when they built United Savings in '75, and that was the lady that
Oh,
owned this property. She owned all that property, and United bought that.
oh my!
I can think of her, but they called her Mrs. Somebody. Mrs. It wasn't Mrs. Heifel, was it?
No,
No. Well, you can think on
I
that.
carried her mail.
Yeah, you can think on that. We don't want to spend the time, but that was what was confusing with Pat the other day. We weren't
Yeah.
quite sure because there was two sets of cabins. So you were in the house right there. Gotcha.
Yeah, and J.J. Jackson built this new
Yes,
house right
yes.
beside it.
Dorothy J. And that's where the Beckerdites was for a
Music.
while and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a house where United
Yeah.
is. That's what I'm talking about. That
Yeah.
went with that property.
Yeah.
So, Marshfield School, you went, obviously, walked to school, and then you brought me a picture of, and I've never seen this picture, and this is a treasure. This is the school play
Yep.
in the old gym that was tore down when they built the new gym on the east wing. And this is the stage that was on the south end of the gym. And you said that's the Pirates of Penzance, right?
Right. It's an operetta.
Yeah, and that picture is on that stage on the south end of the gym,
Yeah.
which would be where our arcade is down there now. And my dad's in that, and you're in that, and some other folks you pointed out.
Well, half the school's in
At
there.
the school, okay.
Yeah.
That is a really, really neat picture, and that shows how the stage was, because I never had it in my mind. And then you also drew me a picture of how that was. And so this is kind of a floor plan of the gym. So down here at the bottom would be the front door, which is where the door is now to go to the donut shop. And then you had seating all around. And then these stairs over here on the right,
Those went out into the main building.
but there was a gap there.
Yeah.
Because that hadn't been filled in yet with what we call the foxhole. Up here at the top
Well,
is the stage.
When I walked through there a while ago, that same door is there now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they filled that in and put the matter of fact, this is part of the fill in. If you look at the walls of this room, you got brick over here and brick over here.
Yeah.
This was the walls of the original east wing where the gym was. This is the walls of the main building. And this gap in here, which is about 20 feet, probably
Yeah, right.
18 or 20 feet.
Okay.
That's where you come out below here.
Yeah. This came out right out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it all makes sense.
And there was no backs on any seats, so the people got there early so they could sit on the top row and had a seat against the wall.
Yeah, they were just benches.
Yeah, just benches.
Was
And
there
over-
any kind of
And over here, when you raised up these first benches, they were full of the old dumbbells.
Oh yeah.
And then there was a club, I cannot think of the name of it, about this long, shaped like a bowling ball, and had a knot on it. And I know the older girls, when I was in grade school, they did all kinds of
Yeah.
exercises with them.
Sure.
But under those bleachers was storage for all.
Okay. So where did you all like go to the restroom, or did they have concessions anywhere or anything for ball games that
No,
you
you had to
recall?
go back.
You went outside and then over into the
Yeah.
lower level of the
Yeah.
east wing or the main building?
And the pep club always sat right here,
Yeah,
and the opposing club sat over here.
I see.
And this was an overhead. Over that back door was a projection booth.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did they project? Like if you had watched a
I
film
think
or
at
something?
one time they had some projectors up there that they could
Shine out
to
to the stage.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
I don't ever remember using it. Never
Yeah.
using it myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. That's really, really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the schoolboy patrol. I've got another picture here that Tom brought me, and this is. You said this is around 1942 or 3, maybe.
So-
You were around 12, probably, or something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Schoolboy patrol operating. You said this is the very first patrol,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Tommy Lehman, Charlie Cunningham's in there, Jackie Dale Anderson. Tom's in there. Wayne McVeigh, Kenneth Meyer, Donald Shook, some names that many of you might remember. So anyway, tell us about that.
Well, we had this striped badge type thing, and we would put it on, and we would go stand out front of the school, over in front of Hosmer's yard, then up at the corner of Crittenden and Jackson, and we stop the cars, let the kids go through.
And you've got the highway patrol, I guess that's the local highway patrol guy, and you got the superintendent and the principal, and then you have a guy from Springfield who was the manager of the Springfield branch of the auto club. So they sponsored it or something.
They sponsored it for.
So you it was kind of a neat thing, kind of honored to be in that little club or that little group.
Sometimes we got a lot of flack.
Well, that's really neat. That's really neat. And so about that same time then as well, now we would be talking somewhere around 1941, right? Pearl Harbor was in December.
Yeah.
And you said that you joined the Boy Scouts.
I joined the Boy Scouts. I was looking forward to joining the Boy Scouts almost as much as I'm looking forward to get my driver's license. But I joined the Boy Scouts right after my birthday, 12 years old.
12, okay.
And then Pearl Harbor started in December.
When was your birthday?
September the 3rd.
September, and Pearl Harbor was December. Okay, just so we kind of see the time frame here.
So we started out doing all the Boy Scout stuff until December. And all of a sudden, everything changed. Everybody went into the war effort. And so whoever was the leader then, and I'm not sure by that time, I think it was Lester Garst. We started in doing paper drives because they needed scrap paper. And we would, we worked it out. So there was a Boy Scout went to every business every afternoon after school to pick up their scrap paper.
Wow.
And which they didn't have too much because the businesses, if they got a letter today, it was cut up, turned over, and that was their paper for the day, business day.
Scrap paper.
Yeah,
whatever.
and they never tore off their adding machine paper. They
left it and used it for records.
No, they let it go on through and they saved it.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And then they turned it over, and if the way they rolled it, they could put it back in and run it clear through and use it.
But they had to keep that though for the records. That was their bookkeeping. They're writing the roll of
back then I don't think they kept the adding.
They didn't.
They didn't keep the adding machine.
I see.
Now some officers may have had to, but most of them
at least took them home and transposed numbers and then brought them back.
When we got it, they'd been run through the adding machine on both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah, and then
about how many were in Scouts? Maybe
15.
Yeah.
20.
Yeah. Now you were Dr. Tommy would have been about 7 or 8 years older than you, so he would have already been gone. Yeah. Okay, because I know he was allegedly maybe one of the first classes of Boy Scouts, or when they first started him.
He was our first Eagle Scout.
Yes, first Eagle Scout. Yeah.
And I'm the oldest living member of the Troop 88.
You are? Okay. Yeah. There wasn't another Eagle Scout until like a long time.
Long time.
Early 60s or something?
In 1941, that type of program for Scouts quit.
Oh, I see.
And like I said, we went to every house in town picking up paper.
So you didn't really get a chance to get your badges.
And we worked in there packing. We had a big old baler, and when they baled it, and the Army come and picked it up.
Where was that at? Where was the baler?
The last building on the east side of the north section of the square.
Okay.
Little building, and that we outgrew that, and they gave us the old jailhouse.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
So
and of course that would have been after about 41, right? Yeah, that's right, because that's when the new courthouse started operating.
Then when they started the air raid wardens program, Marshfield.
Was that a forerunner of the Civil Air Patrol, sort of?
No, it's totally different. Okay. We had regular old air raid wardens.
What was that?
And every block in Marshfield had its own air raid warden. And when they rehearsed, the sirens went off. Every air raid warden checked their district to see if there was no lights on. And every air raid warden had a Boy Scout. And I was assigned to Miss Ines Florence, who lived on Washington Street, where the bed and breakfast is now.
Yes.
So when they blow the sirens, I'd run to her house and I'd make the rounds with her. And if anybody wouldn't turn the lights off, she sent me to the courthouse to report it.
Oh my goodness.
Then I'd run back.
Every night.
No, only when they had practice air.
Oh, I see. How often was that?
Oh, I don't know. 4, 5, 6 months apart.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had to go with her to take all of her training, first aid, espionage, airplane spotting. Dr. McDonald, CR, taught the air raid, the first aid class.
Uh-huh.
The FBI agent taught us about espionage and all this.
Now, how many of those would there been in town, maybe at the time?
I don't know.
Dozen?
At least, maybe 2 dozen.
Yeah.
I know we used the old courthouse courtroom for our classes.
I see.
Yeah, and we had an FBI agent came and told us about watching for this and watching for that. But I got to go through all of her training, and then they gave us each one a big deal that had the side view of every German plane, side view of every Jap plane, side view of every American plane. Then they gave us another set that we put on our ceiling. We could go for that silhouette. And
so you could tell if, in case you would get raided or you could kind of tell what it was and who it was.
So
that is unbelievable.
My mother let Wayne and I put the ones on the ceiling and the others on the wall in our bedroom.
Wow. So was there a feeling then that we truly could get an air raid? I mean, or did people go, well, they're not ever going to get to Missouri, or did you think, well, you might think it would hit the coast, but not.
It was totally unknown.
I know,
at that time.
Yeah, but
later
I didn't know.
Later on in the war, it was,
you kind of knew it wouldn't.
Oh yeah.
But originally, when Pearl Harbor was born, everybody was probably just going, "Oh my gosh, what's next? You know, New York City or?"
Yeah, and so
yeah,
they wasn't going to bomb Marshfield.
No.
And there I was, 12, 13 years old, and if my mother thought there was a bomber in 5,000 miles, do you think she'd let me do it?
But think about that. I mean, what kind of a organized structure would it have taken to get that set up all across our nation in 1941? I mean,
it was.
You're talking about a lot of people. You didn't have the technology. I mean, they had to do it by mail and I guess telephone. They could do some stuff, but it was like that. That's just really remarkable. I did not know about that.
Yeah, and
that's cool.
It was fun.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. And of course, it probably prepared all you boys to think, well, we're going to join the service one of these days. We're going to go, and that would be patriotism and so forth. And
everybody was patriotic.
Yeah, absolutely.
At that time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And then they started a metal drive, and they started storing the metal on the east side of the square, from the center line of the square to the inside of the sidewalk. And there was a stack the width of this room, higher than my head, all clear down the north half of the east side of the square, and kind of come around the corner. And everybody got saying, well, that got that, what are we going to do? Well, where the license bureau is now, it was empty. It was an empty building. The military came in with a troop of soldiers with trucks, and they took that building for their barracks, set up their bleachers. I mean, their cots and stuff in there. And They set up and had field kitchens in there for them. They stayed and they hauled all that stuff off, and they picked it all up, took it down, put it in flat cars, hauled it off. So,
Wow.
so we had
So that building was an old building that was there, not the building that's there
right,
now.
yes,
Because I've seen pictures.
yeah,
They tore down that whole row.
yeah.
For a while, there was billboards there, right?
Oh yes,
Yeah. So
that building was the only one there. The rest
Yeah.
of the building, that's
Yeah.
where all the drunks went and back in there
behind the billboards.
take a drink.
Yeah.
Which when they
Drink
left
and use the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
and
Because I know the Centennial picture. I think in the Centennial that was just billboards,
Yeah.
except for, like you said, maybe there was a building on the end.
and us boys with BB guns, that was a really good place to go shoot bottles.
Yeah. Wow. Really neat stories. Really neat stories. So when did you meet Ivina? Was it
Well,
before or after you was in the service?
after?
Okay.
Quite a bit
So let's wait on that. So then you graduate in 48. You did the play. I mean, what else in high school?
Well-
Anything else? Because we're about half over already. I know it's hard to believe.
Well, one of the main things that I remember about, and still today, when I was a sophomore, which was in 46, the war was over. People wanted to do things,
Hmm.
and the school wanted every kid in a club. So Mr. Mooney organized the Wildlife and Conservation Club.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And Jimmy Whittenberg was the first president, and we got up, and he took us out of school. I don't know where he took us out of school, but we got a school bus, and he took us to Bennett Springs, March the 1st, 1946, and to be there to open up the trout season.
Uh-huh.
And then Bill Brooks was president the next year. We
Mhm.
went back, and then I was president when I was a senior. But it confided we couldn't get a bus, so there might have been somebody skipped school. I'm not sure. Anyway,
Statute of limitations has got us covered now.
so
Tom.
anyway, if you go down today, there will be a group of guys over by the place where they blow the whistle, and they are the sons and the grandsons of that original bunch.
Right. Give some of those names, the
Oh,
Brooks boys.
Joe,
Yeah.
Joe Harold and Johnny,
Yeah.
and
Now William.
yeah, William, yeah, and some of the other
Jerry
and
Minor.
Jerry Minor's there, and Rob Aarons,
Yes.
which he can't fish anymore, so Brooks was bring down a propane bottle with a heater on it, set it up, and they get
Yeah.
him down there, and I've been going with them even after I quit fishing.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know Ruth went with them some too in
Yeah.
her later years, and of course some of the friends of these guys, Wally Thompson and different ones.
Yeah.
That
It's
yeah,
happening.
yeah, that's great. It's good that you all continue to do that.
So
So you graduate and then you decide you're going to join the service. Tell us about that.
well, I wasn't planning on it. I was planning on going to SMS.
Yeah.
And one night I had a date, and we were out at Pete and Red's Cafe, and Junior Mackey, Bill, John Miller, Sonny Lynn, Lauren Farr, T.J. Dugan.
They're all your classmates, sound like.
Yeah.
They're all in the same class, your
Yeah.
dad's class. Yeah.
He came in and said, "We're going to go join the Army in the morning. You want to go with us?" Never thought, yeah. And so
What'd your folks say?
so
What'd your mom say?
well, they weren't too thrilled about it.
Yeah. Chances are you'd have got drafted anyway, right?
This was in 1948.
Right.
Nobody had ever heard of Korea.
Right.
Nothing. It was after World War II.
But we still had a strong military
Yeah.
all over. I mean, Germany, all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, by that time.
But anyway, then Junior Mackey got culled out the first day because he didn't have a little finger.
Oh.
And I went to school with him 2 years before I ever noticed it. But anyway, he didn't have a
The
little.
war just would have been going on. He'd have went.
And then Sonny Lynn we were all 18, and Sonny Lynn was only 17, and Ruth wouldn't sign, his mother. So they ended up just Lauren, TJ, John, and I ended up.
Yeah.
And
It was the Army.
Went to the Army.
Uh-huh.
We got separated the first day. TJ, Lauren, and I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and John got sent to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Oh, my.
Put in the infantry. He walked all over Washington to hear it. So, and we went to Fort Sill. We had a good time.
What'd you end up doing in the service?
I was a welder.
Welder. Okay.
Yeah, I got in a welding shop and a big machine shop. I was in a heavy tank maintenance company.
Mm-hmm.
And
how long were you in?
just a year.
Oh, just a year.
We signed up for 2 years, and the recruiter comes down and says, "Guys, there's a new program for boys 18 years old. They can go for 1. Would you like to switch from 2 years to 1 year?"
Well, sure.
Yeah. And so
got all the benefits and.
Yeah, and so then Korea started, and John.
That was about 53, wasn't it?
Yeah, John and Lauren were inactive. TJ and I were in a unit in Springfield.
Reserves.
Active reserves.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, you're going to call back first." Well, I was already working at the post office, and I delivered the registered letters to them, telling them to report. And TJ and I, we sat in a company in Springfield that the company commander wouldn't release us because we volunteered to go in, and he wouldn't release us. Said, "You're trained here. We're going to Jefferson Barracks to set up a induction session."
Huh? And you didn't have to go.
No.
Wow. How long were you in the reserves?
It was 56.
56.
8 years.
Yeah. So you didn't really even have to use the GI Bill or anything. You just got a good job at the post office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a fluke.
Right.
I was only supposed to work till Christmas, and that was it.
And then how many years did you work there?
35.
35.
Well,
Did you do a city route or a rural route?
all of it.
All of it.
I started out walking city, clerk, worked up to a full regular clerk, assistant postmaster, had 10 years to go. Aubrey Young retired, and I pulled seniority and got out of the post office and got on the route.
Mm-hmm.
Best man I ever made. Yeah.
Those were really good jobs back then. I mean,
Yeah,
they
they
really
were.
were. I'm
Yeah.
sure they're still good, but you
Yeah.
guys really had good jobs.
Yeah. So, like I said, after when Christmas, I went in and asked the postmaster. I said, they said I'd done. They said, "No, you just keep coming back till we tell you not to." so.
What was it like in Marshfield? Well, and so then you come back, and then when did you meet Ivina pretty soon after that?
52.
52. So
Got out in 49.
yeah.
52.
So what did young men do at that? What were you? You were 20 years old, 21. What did you do around Marshfield in those days? You don't have to give me you don't have to tell me what you don't want to, but like,
well,
I know you were
we went to
a good kid, but
we went to Springfield to movies a lot.
Yeah.
We had a skating rink.
Yes.
And
down north of the park, right?
Yeah, where the Parkview Apartments is.
Yeah.
Warren Johnson owned all that.
Did he? Uh-huh.
And then at one time there was a bowling alley on the east side of the square.
Did not know that.
And then later on it went out.
Where was it at?
Where Herman Pierce garage was.
So Champ Heron or Barbara's buildings in there. Yeah. Okay.
And then that went out, and Junior Dawson put in a slot car program. He had 3 big slot car races.
In that one of those buildings?
Yeah. Big, I mean big ones.
Huh.
The loops were longer than this room.
Yeah.
It didn't last long, but.
Well, that building behind there was kind of the automotive shop part for the dealership. So that building was attached. I'm sure.
When Dad's garage burned in 1959, Herman Pierce was already out of there with his, and Dad rented that until we got our new building.
That back building there.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Marshfield, at that time, it was the movie and the theater.
Yeah.
And the skating rink and sweet shop. My goodness, everybody went to sweet shop.
Yeah. Tell me about Pete and Red's Cafe.
Well,
heard my folks talk about that.
Pete had the first, what he called a Dagwood burger in Marshfield. And
it was out across from Singer's.
Yeah. And he put a slice of lettuce and a very thin slice of tomato on it. And that was the only difference.
Before that, it was just hamburger and cheese, or just hamburger.
yeah, not too many cheese things.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a go-to place.
Yeah.
And
So if we're singers, said this would be where the Mercy Clinic is, right? Kind of, there's a Mercy Clinic, yeah, right in there.
yeah,
Because I can remember there was
it was a big service station.
yeah, but I don't really remember the service station, but I remember the little cabins.
Yeah,
They were still there when I was in school and kid. I remember there was a couple people that lived there, maybe
yeah,
kids that didn't have family or something. I can recall that being there still before they tore it down to build Mercy there. But
yeah. Guy Dugan lived right.
the Dugans had a lot of that land around there.
Yeah.
So Pete and Red's, you had the sweet shop.
In the summertime, we had the pool, the old pool.
Yes. And of course, Andrew's Cafe, and what other cafes were there?
Right beside the
Muzzies.
sweet shop was Skeeter Hargis. Well, George Barnes started it, and Skeeter Hargis ended up buying it.
George started there.
Yeah.
Okay. That was Bob's Hamburgers later on, too. They called
Yeah.
it Bob's
Yeah.
on the
Well,
corner.
No, it was on the corner.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. But on the corner, after World War II ended,
Uh-huh. It was
Paul Beckerdike's brother-in-law put in a Bendix washing machine place there.
on the very corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Laundromat.
No, he just sold them.
Oh, he sold them. I see.
And they were a crazy looking thing, about this big around,
Uh-huh.
and they vibrated so bad you had to bolt them down. But he was
Of course,
in there
before that, it was just wringer washers. I'm sure that
yeah,
was probably.
and so he was there, and then but before that, Sam Rice had a barbershop there,
Okay.
and there was a shooting in that barbershop.
Tell me about it.
Well, there was a man that was at a sale, and there's two cousins that were I think all three of them had a nip or two, and the cousins got kind of nasty with this man. I've heard tales. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
And by bidding up and dumping and all this.
Sure.
Well, after the sale, the two cousins went in, and one of them was laid back getting a shave, all covered up, lathered up, and the other one was sitting in a chair. And this other guy came in with a pistol, walked up to the man in the chair, stuck it in his ribs, and pulled the trigger, and it misfired. And the other one jumped up and run for the door. And the second time he fired, and he got him in the side. It wasn't bad. He lived. And the court system was a little different back then, because his sentence was, if he would just move out of the state and never come back, they'd drop charges.
Oh man! So nobody got killed, just shot.
Just shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other went out the front door with a cape on, lathered up. So.
Well, you don't have to mention the names, but would we know the Would we know the
Oh,
names?
yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
interesting.
And see, Sam Rice was my grandma's brother. The barber.
The barber.
Yeah.
Okay, so you knew that story well then.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stories around Marshfield like that.
Yeah.
Baldy Day was sheriff. Then later on, Johnny Johnson was sheriff. There's Warren Johnson's dad.
Yes.
And then things.
You're talking about getting back there in the 30s, right? Or
yeah,
pretty much, because Isom came in at about 48 or 9 or somewhere in there, 45.
45, 46.
Yeah. And then he died in 55, and then after that, I can tell you who the sheriffs pretty well were, but
I some straighten things out.
Yeah.
I mean, it was no question. It was bad in Marshfield.
Yeah.
There was drunks laying in the streets and stuff. And Isom took care of it.
Yeah.
Isom knew I don't know where he knew what he was doing, but he took care of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Saturdays, you couldn't find a parking place on the square all day. I mean,
well, I've heard some of them talk about I think Ruth Brooks told me that like the Shields drugstore would be open at night on Friday night after the ball game because they had a soda fountain or Rathbun's, and
Yeah, they
that
all,
was all just really busy, and
yes,
even on in the
yeah.
evenings
And
late.
see, Shields had a soda fountain,
Yeah.
and I don't know, uh, Claude Woods moved it down, made the sweet shop.
Okay. I remember Claude Woods.
Yeah, well, he got Shields. He was working for Shields.
Yes.
Now, what the arrangements, I have
He
no idea.
came back and worked for him after later too when I was a
I
kid.
think so.
He
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but anyway, he started a sweet shop, and then
Yeah.
finally ended up selling it to John Van Diglen,
Yes.
and then John sold it to Johnny Andrews,
Oh, okay.
or was it?
I don't remember
No, wait a
that.
minute, Johnny Andrews was before Van Diglen.
Okay.
Johnny is Johnny Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't there when I was a kid in the '60s. It was already Ruth's Flowers or
Yeah.
um,
But that was the headquarters of the teenagers in Marshfield.
right.
No question about it. We all there, and the theater had a Friday and Saturday afternoon and Saturday night double feature. And then Sunday they had their prime show, the best shows. Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and Monday night. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday was their Class B movie, but they also had a serial with it. I mean, it was a series
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Tots Brooks run it then? Or
yes.
yeah.
Well, and his dad was running it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I popped popcorn in there.
Did you?
But I got paid really big.
All the popcorn
got-
you could eat?
Oh,
Or they didn't know about that?
yeah, all the popcorn you could eat, and I had a free pass to go to the movies anytime.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's a pretty big deal for a
It's
kid.
pretty big.
That probably impressed
I
the
just
girls,
worked
didn't
one. I just worked one night a week.
it?
When Jackie Dale Anderson had a ball game.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, but that then, but like you said, the square was open till 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
At least on
yeah.
every Saturday night.
Now, I remember when Shields was open late,
Yeah.
I mean, even when I was a kid in the '60s, they'd be open till 8 or 9 o'clock. But
We moved.
not the prescription part, but I mean, you could go in there and buy stuff.
We lived across from that city lot where the ambulance barn used to be down there.
Yeah.
Right behind
Yeah.
the license bureau.
Right.
And there would be 8, 10, 15 buggies and horses, and people come to town on Saturday with their
Still with their buggies
oh
and
yeah
horses.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then across the road over again on Crittenden Street was a big stockyard.
Yeah.
Smith's.
Yeah. Alf Smith or
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
granddad, I guess.
Then-
Gilbert's dad.
Then over where the Brooks Gas Company storage is now, there was another stockyard there that they
By
loaded
the
on the
tracks?
train. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Um,
And when we lived down on Washington Street in the 30s, I've seen big herds of cattle by cowboys bringing them up to go into the stockyards. Come up, they'd cross I-4, they'd cross old 66.
You mean on foot? The cattle will be on foot?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
They'd drive them, actually.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. There'd be 60, 70, 80 head of cattle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's
And
really...
Warfield's changed a bunch.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Well, you think about the size of the town, too.
Well,
and it was...
I think when I was in high school, we had 1,400.
Right. Mm-hmm. But the footprint of the town, Old 66, which is 00 and Hubble Drive, that was the north.
Yeah,
That was it.
that was it.
And of course, the park, there was a lot of undeveloped land between the square and the park and the
then you
highway.
go over on the east side of town.
Yeah, Elm Street, right?
Well, it didn't go clear to Elm Street.
No, that's right.
It just at Locust Street.
Yeah. But Elm was there, like, wasn't it a county road or something
Yeah.
that went out?
Yeah. But Locust Street run north up so to Bedford Street.
Yes.
No,
Burford.
Burford Street.
Yeah.
Because Locust up to Burford, and Burford back Olive to Washington Street, that was the circle driveway for the Whiteside farm.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Tom Robinson lived over there.
Yeah.
And he's told me about that one time.
Yeah.
The story about that.
Yeah, that was all part of the.
And of course, Bedford then was developed in the early '60s.
Yeah, see, I was carrying the mail, and we would go down Washington Street to Locust. We'd go up to Burford, turn around, and go back.
Okay.
And I remember while I was carrying the mail, watching them cut the road north over to what we call Cow Hump Road,
Which is Julian Street.
Julian Street now. And then they developed everything east of Locust over to Elm.
And that was because of the school in 1960 when they built Hubble.
Yeah.
And then Stanley Kudemelka had the land south of there and developed Bedford Street and the rest of Burford and so forth. Then my Uncle Lee Thomas had a farm in there, and that part was part of, some of that was his, where Noel Thomas and Cale Roast, my granddad, built and all that. But that was all right around 1960.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad built 2 houses on Bedford over there about that time.
Yeah.
So, but you take before that, I mean, you get back there.
You're out in the country.
There was that, right?
From Locust,
yeah, exactly.
From Locust Street east, you were in the country. All cattle.
Yeah.
And Burford Street north.
Right.
Yeah.
So industry, you had the Sugar Creek Creamery.
Yeah, and also
Peevely over out on the corner down there at 38
we had two creameries.
Yeah. Sugar Creek was bought out by MFA, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Kraft.
And Peevely just folded up. They went back to Lebanon, basically. And then Kraft came in and
built the new building in
no.
the 60s. No, Kraft bought Sugar Creek.
Yeah. Sugar Creek. Well, there on the corner where Hampton's is.
That was Kraft.
That was a collection station.
Right. My dad was with Kraft then. In 65, they built that.
Yeah.
But it had been down in front of the MFA there when it was Sugar Creek, and then Kraft bought them.
Yeah.
But maybe MFA bought Sugar Creek, and then Kraft bought that from MFA. I don't remember exactly how that worked, but there wasn't much industry. The industrial park wasn't out there until
one of the
early 60s.
One of the big deals was we was going to have a factory here, and that was what we call the knothole factory.
Yes, okay, it was there, yeah.
Blair's?
Welch Manufacturing.
Yeah.
It was there when I was a kid. We'd ride our bikes down there and get the scrap. They'd have little scrap boxes in a pile out there, and you could pick up pieces of cedar, and it was all cedar.
Mr. Carl Skint was the manager. And one day we got a letter come into Mr. Skinflint in Marshfield. So we looked at that, and we just put it in Carl Skint's box. And it was his.
It was his. That is great. His name was George.
Yeah.
And George Street was named after him.
Yeah.
And then he went on and was the first manager of Mackinac, or was it York Casket, or one of those factories?
Mackinac. Yeah, he was a character.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember him.
Clinton Taylor and I gave him a bad time when he came in the post office.
Skinflint.
Yeah.
That's great. Boy, we're about out of time, Tom. Can we do this again?
Sure.
You want to do it next week?
Why not?
Now, I don't want to mess up your carving, so you want to do it again at noon, then you could still have your class after, or what? What would work out?
No, we'll do something else for carving.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell them about your carving real quick.
Well, I started carving after I retired, and went to a lot of classes. War Eagle, Arkansas, and I went there for 22 years, and to Doane College in Crete, Nebraska, and took bird carving. And last March, I got a chance to take a week seminar to the #1 bird carving instructor in the United States.
Oh, man.
It was fantastic.
Where was that at?
In Springfield.
You really?
And I'm signed up to take it next March.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, maybe you could bring a piece of work or two next week,
I will.
if you would, and we can see.
Do that.
Yeah. There's just this is great. This is
We haven't even got started.
I know we haven't, and I know you've got some more things you want to talk about, and we would stay today another hour, but I've got to go in the drive
Yeah.
my grandson
Well-
in the parade. He's going to be playing his drums, and I told him I'd drive him on the trailer, so we got to go do that here in a bit. But yeah, we've this is phenomenal.
There's the wildlife conservation.
Yeah. Okay.
And here's our class.
Did Dr. CR, was he involved in that too or not?
Not really.
Okay, because my dad used to go hunting with him a lot
yeah,
when he was
did.
yeah,
I
I'm
went
sure you did
a lot
too.
of times with him.
Yeah.
Because after he got older, he didn't want to be in the woods by himself,
I see.
and so he'd come to the garage and Dad say, "Get your rifle, you're going." And
Yeah.
I'd leave a car, somebody's customer's car, and I'd go squirrel hunt.
Squirrel hunt. Is that the old stage there? Because it doesn't look quite like
It
that
looked
other
like
one.
the bleachers.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe that's the bleachers then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is
That's the way we were graduated. Well,
there's my dad right there.
that was when we were in the,
Oh, you're in the same kind of in the same spots.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's great. That's a good picture.
yeah,
Mrs. Deckard was your teacher, one of
yeah,
them.
yep,
She was the principal my first grade.
yeah. She was my second grade teacher.
Yeah.
Miss Case, Miss Deckard.
We didn't even get into you're getting when you got married around 52. We didn't even
53.
we didn't even touch your family hardly.
No.
So we're going to do that next week. We got 3 minutes, and this has been incredible, and I really appreciate you coming on. This will be very important to future generations, what we're trying to do here. And Tom, you're a jewel for Marshfield and Webster County, and your knowledge. I mean, you may not agree, but I'm telling you, there's not very many people that has a memory like you do of those days.
Yeah, but I don't
that
know
are
what I
around.
had for breakfast.
Well, that's okay. We don't really care, but we do enjoy the stories from the 30s and the 40s in Marshfield, Missouri. So we're going to have you back next Saturday, Logan. Tom's coming back. We're going to do this again, and so is noon or 1 o'clock better for you?
Whatever you
Okay.
you said.
Well, we'll go back to 1 o'clock, and that's our normal time. And
We'll carve to one. And,
yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to bring us a couple of carvings. We're going to pick up from probably the early 50s
Yeah.
and come on from there.
You make it know what you want.
I will. We'll continue our visit, and this is really good, and I just really appreciate it. So, yeah, we still got 2 minutes. Anything you want to add before we part today? What else you got over there in your memorabilia?
Well, this is our third grade picture. I think
Okay.
you have that.
Okay, this is the one that was in the paper in the. If any of you had the insert to the Marshfield Mail about a month ago,
Okay, this is our second grade. Here.
Okay.
That's a second grade, and I can't find the original because see, Miss Deckard's in here, so she was our second grade teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this was the one that was in the paper though.
Yeah.
But Shelby, our newspaper editor, Shelby Atkinson, did a story on the community center, and she used a picture, this class picture, on the cover of that story, and so it was the class of 48, but it was when they were in the third grade.
Yeah.
So this would have been around 1938 or so, which is really remarkable. And it's, in the front of the old building out here.
Well, here, second grade was a class of 37, 38.
Yeah, there you go, 37, 38.
So your other picture would have been 38, 39.
38, 39, yeah.
Yeah.
This is you said that all the seniors in those days had to do a class play their
Yeah.
senior year.
Yeah.
So your senior play, you remember the name of the play?
Oh yeah.
Is it on there?
The dinner bell.
The Dinner Bell was the name of the play.
Yeah.
And all the various classmates here had different roles.
Yeah.
Where are you at on here? You were Chuck Wilson,
Yeah.
Tommy Farr.
Yeah.
and my dad was the professor. Noel Thomas was Mr. Smooth. I could see that being Mr. Smooth. Yeah, this is really good. Ralph Sterling Bridwell. He was in your class?
Yes.
Where did he end up?
He ended up as head of the Bridwell Oil Company in
That's what I thought, in Texas. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did really, really well, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, he did. He just had a left arm. He didn't have a right arm.
Really?
He had a right hand, but he didn't have an arm.
Like born that way or something?
Yeah.
I see.
And but he held the altitude league record on the batting average in baseball.
With one arm.
He couldn't knock it out of the park, but he'd get on.
You think that's what gave him an incentive to be extremely successful in life or something? Like an extra
Yeah.
drive?
Yeah. Of course, his brother was opposite,
Yeah.
and he did well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but his Uncle Joe was head of the Bridwell Oil Company, and he kind of took a liking to Ralphie because of his arm, I think. And so he put him through geology school.
I see.
Got his degree in petroleum geology, and he took him to Texas and put him. He worked in the main office, and then finally he started a new division and told Ralphie to go build it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Huh. So Joe was the original.
Yeah.
I see.
and he was a brother to the Bridwells out south and north.
Yeah.
And Ralph.
Be their uncle. He'd be them boys' uncle, though. I mean, different generation. Right?
No, Joe was brother to Ralph Bridwell, Ralphie's dad. He was the mayor of Marshfield for years.
Yeah.
And I forget what the Bridwells out there.
Well,
it's not the ones you know now.
Right, that's what I
Their
mean.
dad.
Their dad. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah,
meant. Yeah,
yeah.
because there was three of them brothers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sterling.
Sterling and Jim and
See, I don't know
Another
where that come from. This is Sterling here, but there is a Ralphie. His middle name is Sterling.
right. But he would be an uncle or something.
Yeah, they're cousins.
Cousin. Okay.
Yeah. So, but someplace back in the Bridwell line, there had to be a Sterling.
Yeah. Yeah. Use that family name.
Yeah.
Logan, are we up? Yep. It's 1:02. I got to go to the parade. Tom, thank you.
You bet.
I really appreciate this. We're going to see Tom again next week at 1:00, and appreciate all of you joining today. Hopefully, if you don't see this live and you see it later, tell your friends. I think we have a real treasure here, and everyone that would watch this, if they have any interest in history, I think would really enjoy this podcast. So we'll see you next week, 1:00. Thanks again. Have a happy Veterans Day. Thanks.